Hi, Myrna. This is Sheree. I was just checking my audio.
It's working.
Well, hey, Ursel.
How are you?
Glad I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm here.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to mute until we're ready to start.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, how do I mute here?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir, we can.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. Today is January 19th, 2021. The time is 6 p.m. This is a City of Georgetown, Texas Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. At this time, I would ask Myrna Garcia, our staff liaison, to please call the roll so we can officially establish which commissioners are in attendance. Myrna?
Good evening. Sorry, I had some computer issues.
All right, thank you.
Let's see. And my computer is freezing right now. I'm sorry, apologize for that. Okay, here we go. Marlene McMichael,
Here.
Cherie Heinzman,
Here?
Kayla McCord,
Here.
Travis Berthius,
Here.
Jay Warren,
Hey, I'm here.
Ursula Brashear,
Here.
and Jim Sawyer.
Here.
All right, thank you. So we have a quorum. I'll now call the meeting to order. I want to welcome everyone to this regularly scheduled Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Commission members are appointed by the mayor and the city council for the purpose of reviewing land use applications. For some of those applications, the commission will be the final authority. For others, notably those involved with zoning or annexation, the commission will act as an advisory body and as such makes recommendations to the city council for their final determination. Tonight's meeting is being held as a teleconference. The complete agenda and all supporting documents for each of the items to be dealt with this evening has been posted on the city's website and is available for public review. In a few moments, we'll hear from Sophia Nelson, the city's planning director, who will walk us through the process of how all parties can participate in this teleconference meeting. The agenda for tonight's meeting is divided into three sections: a regular session agenda, a consent agenda, and a legislative regular agenda. As to the consent agenda, any items that the director considers routine and non-controversial, or any items that don't require public hearing are grouped together and can't be decided on a single motion. That being said, any item on the consent agenda can be moved to the legislative regular agenda for a full presentation and discussion by the commission. That move can be made either by a commissioner or members of the public. So prior to taking any action on the consent agenda, I'll first ask if any of the commissioners have any items they need to abstain on, or if they have any items they want pulled from the consent agenda and moved to the regular agenda. I'll then ask if any member of the public has any items that they want pulled and moved to the legislative regular agenda. As to the legislative regular agenda, each of those items listed for action will be discussed and acted on individually. The process we will follow this evening is: one, I will announce the agenda item and the file number for the item being considered. Two, the city staff will begin by reading the caption for the item for the record and then make a presentation to the commission. At the conclusion of the staff presentation, the commission then will have an opportunity to ask questions of staff regarding the item. After the commission has completed their questions for staff, the applicant will be given up to 5 minutes to make a presentation to the commission. The commission will then have an opportunity to ask questions to the applicant directly. At the conclusion of the applicant's presentation, we then open the floor to public comments. When it's your turn to address the commission, please begin by stating your name and address for the record. Speakers will have up to 3 minutes to address the commission unless another person present and signed up to address the commission is willing to transfer their time, in which case an individual speaker may have up to 6 minutes to address the commission. That's real important. I want everybody to listen to this next statement because, however, if more than 20 speakers are here to speak on an agenda item, then by city rules, each speaker is allowed a maximum of 2 minutes to address the commission, 4 minutes if another individual has signed up to speak and is present and is willing to yield you their time. After everyone who wishes to address the commission has spoken, the public hearing will be closed. The applicant will then be provided up to 3 minutes of rebuttal time to respond if they so choose. And then with the conclusion of that step, discussion of the item moves to the dais. The commissioners will engage in the deliberative process. Our goal is to adopt a formal action on the item, either a recommendation or an action. All right, with that, Sophia, let's start with you and let's ask you to please walk us through how we're going to run the meeting this evening.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, commissioners and attendees. Thank you for being here with us at today's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Just a few reminders for today's meeting. First is when you speak, please clearly state your name. We are recording this meeting and we're also taking minutes, and we'd like to be able to take accurate records and understand who's speaking on a given item. Until you are ready to speak, please mute yourself. This really helps in preserving the sound quality and understanding who's speaking and reducing, more importantly, reducing that background noise that may occur if you accidentally leave your mic unmuted. If you need technical support during this meeting, please feel free to chat or enter a message into the Q&A, and I will do my best to support you during that at that time. If you are here to speak on an item, I ask you to please enter your name into the chat or the question and answer. This helps me track the number of speakers that are going to be signed up to speak on a given item. Additionally, when we get to the public hearing, we will call the names out that we have. If your name wasn't on the list and you'd like to speak on the item, please raise your hand or unmute yourself and let us know once we have completed reading all of the speakers that have asked to speak on that item and have signed up. Chair, that is all I have at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That takes us to item A, which is public wishing to address the board. The city of Georgetown has a standard process by which each board and commission creates a window of opportunity for anyone who would like to address the board or the commission on an item that's not on the agenda. They're free to do so. We ask that you contact the staff liaison at least a week prior to the meeting so that you can be posted, your item can be posted, and we can give you an opportunity to address the commission. At the time of the posting, no persons have signed up to address the board, so that's going to take us to item or to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda tonight consists of items B through AZ, so 51 items here. And these are items, again, that the deemed by the director to be non-controversial and routine and can be acted on with a single vote. Commissioners, let me start with you. Do you have any items on the consent agenda that you need to abstain on? All right. Do you have any items on the consent agenda that you want to pull for discussion? All right. Are there any members of the public who have any items listed on the consent agenda that they would like to have pulled and moved to the regular agenda? Now's your time to speak. Sophia, I'm not seeing any hands. Oh, wait.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I do believe I see some hands. Let me get to that section to see who the names are.
Can you hear me?
Okay, I have Todd Hughes and Amir Z whose hands are up. Do you have items that you want to have pulled?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. There is a list of agendas on the website. All I received is a
Wait a minute,
letter from you guys.
wait, stop just a second, please. Would you please tell us your name and address?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. My name is Amir Zbeda, and my property is at 4250 East University Avenue. It's right
Okay.
next to that field.
All right, and it's on the consent agenda?
Well, I don't know what's you talked about 51 items and I don't see them. I mean, I haven't seen it in a letter that I received, so I wasn't aware that there is actually something on the website
Okay,
that
can
lists
you?
all these items.
All right, so does anybody know which item he's discussing?
Chair, yes, I do believe that he's referring to the rezoning case that's on the legislative agenda. That's along University. I can
Oh,
chat.
okay.
I can chat Mr. Amir on the side and make sure he has what he needs.
Are you addressing the rezoning case out by the high school, 4250?
Yes.
Okay, that is not for this agenda item. That's the next item. So I'm looking for items on the consent agenda that we need to move to the legislative regular agenda, and that item is not on the consent agenda. And
So
we
it's
will
not going to
get
be today, or is it going to be later?
No, it'll be right after we finish here.
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah, not
Thank
a
you.
problem at all. Yeah, not a problem. And then I had two attendee, Todd Hughes.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good evening. My name is Todd Hughes. I live at 103 Rio Vista Cove.
Whoa. You're here for an agenda item BB.
Project case number 2020-32-RZ.
We're not at that part of the agenda. That is, that'll come up, and I'll give you an opportunity to address the commission when we get to that one. If you have
We are-
anything on the consent agenda, that's the items I'm looking for now.
Thank you. I apologize.
Not a problem.
I didn't know the difference between consent agenda or other agenda.
It's not a problem. If you don't do this often, this is a very confusing process, and we try to make it as unconfusing as we can, and we're not very good at it.
But we are addressing that case number.
Yes, sir,
Later?
we will. Yes, sir,
Thank
we
you.
will. Okay. All right. All right. I don't see any other hands. So commissioners, as to the consent agenda, the floor is open to a motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented by staff. This is Jay.
Jay Warren, a motion to approve as presented. Do we have a second?
This is Cherie Heitzman. I move to second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on this item? If not, Myrna, would you call the roll, please?
Cherie Heitzman,
Yes.
Kayla McCord,
Yes.
Marlene McMichael,
Yes.
Travis Perthius,
Yes.
Jay Warren,
Yes, ma'am.
Jim Sawyer,
Yes.
Ursula Brashear.
Yes, so the motion carries 7-0. Thank you. That takes us to the legislative regular agenda. We have 4 items listed on tonight's agenda. One of those has a ton of people here to speak, and the other 3 have literally no one here to speak. I mean, very little. So to be fair to those who have an item that may not generate much public interest, I'm going to rearrange the items in the schedule that we're going to take them up. And I want to start with BA, go to BC, and then Sophia, did BD get pulled or moved to next meeting or not?
Sir, we can absolutely do that if that's the wish of the commission to do that.
Oh,
We
okay.
can push that to the next meeting.
Okay, but then so So we'll address BD and then address BB, which is where all the intense interest is. All right, so we're going to start with BA. This is file number is 2020-9-REZ, and Nat Wagner, that would be yours, please.
Good evening, Commission and Commission Chair. This is Nat Wagner from the Planning Department, Long Range Planning Manager, here to present tonight for a public hearing and possible action on a zoning map amendment to rezone approximately 92.612 acres of the W. Stubblefield survey from the agricultural zoning district to the residential single-family zoning district for the property generally located at 4250 University Avenue. This property is located and identified with the red hatch. It is east of State Highway 130 and west of the Eastview High School, which is effectively the easternmost extension of the city limits of Georgetown. This property was brought into the corporate limits of Georgetown in 2006 as part of the larger 2005 annexation strategy, and at that time secured its current zoning district. The subject tract identified with the red outline is located wholly within the Edwards Aquifer Transition Zone. There are no residential structures on site. The southwest portion of the property is located within the FEMA Flood Zone A. The property is generally flat and slopes to the southwest. You can see it is relatively undeveloped, and the development pattern in eastern Georgetown is low density residential to the east in the ETJ, the extraterritorial jurisdiction, and then to the north, you can see some low intensity commercial uses along State Highway 29. And then to the east is, of course, Eastview High School. To share with you the future land use map and the guidance provided there within. As I mentioned, the property is identified with hatched black lines, and you can see that it enjoys a neighborhood future land use designation and is located next to Eastview, which has an institutional future land use, and to the southwest, a mixed density neighborhood. And just immediately west is the community center future land use node. The guidance from the comprehensive plan related to the future land use designation is neighborhood, which is meant to maintain a suburban type residential development. The developments within these future land use categories should provide adequate space for schools, parks, and other neighborhood amenities. It is appropriate to have commercial uses within this future land use category if they're located along major thoroughfares or collector roads. The guidance provided for the density of this residential development is less than 5 units an acre. It is meant to be principally a residential future land use, but it does allow for that supporting non-residential uses, which can include things like neighborhood serving retail, office, or institutional, or even civic uses. To give you a sense of the zoning pattern out east of State Highway 130 and south of 29, the majority of the properties surrounding this property are zoned for agricultural to the south, east, and west. To the north, you will see north of University on the opposite side of 29 is in the extraterritorial jurisdiction. That is property outside of the city limits. In terms of what's on the ground today, existing uses to the north in the ETJ are those commercial office type uses that have, and then further north of those are large lot, low density residential. To the south, east, and west are primarily agricultural in use and have some low density residential structures on them. Part of evaluating the future land use compliance is evaluating the share of what's on the ground today. I wanted to provide this map for you just to give you a sense. The dashed red outline is the future land use category neighborhood, and in black is the property, the subject property we're discussing tonight. And so when we take a look at the target ratios, I'll be using this area dashed in red to report to you what the existing uses are in terms of zoning. What the applicant was requesting tonight is residential single-family zoning. The residential single-family zoning district allows for medium density lots at minimum size of 5,500 square feet. The RS district contains standards for the development that maintain a single-family neighborhood characteristic. The RS district may be located within the proximity of neighborhood-friendly commercial and public services and should be compatible, should be protected from incompatible uses like really intense commercial districts. All housing types in the RS district shall use the lot dimensional design standards of the district, which I've provided here for you. The permitted land uses within the district include detached single-family homes and group homes with 6 or less residents, attached single-family homes, churches, family home daycare, and schools, among other uses, are permitted subject to specific design limitations to ensure compatibility with the surrounding properties. Other uses such as accessory dwelling units, bed and breakfast, group daycare, general office, and other similar uses may be permitted subject to the approval of a special use permit. The Unified Development Code does provide criteria for staff to evaluate under section 3.06030. In reviewing the application, we did find that the information was sufficient in order to render a recommendation. In terms of consistency with the comprehensive plan, the residential single-family zoning district is appropriate at this location, given the applicant's intent to develop the property at a gross density of less than 5 dwelling units an acre, which is consistent with the density sought by the neighborhood future land use and the future land use map. The existing ratio of residential to non-residential uses in this area is 0% residential to 0% non-residential, with 100% of those uses zoned for agriculture, or having an agricultural zoning district and their uses being agricultural based. If approved, this request will increase the share of residential land uses in the neighborhood future land use category in this area to 40%, which moves it closer to the 80% target. The increase in residential development as a result of the zoning map amendment will not have a harmful effect on the health, safety, or general welfare of the city. This is the target ratio as I shared with you earlier. The middle bar depicts what is on the ground today in terms of the existing conditions. As I mentioned, 100% of the properties within this future land use do have an agricultural zoning district. And this request would decrease that share to 60% and increase the share of residential uses to 40%, which is closer in line to the target ratio for this future land use. In terms of compatibility with present zoning, the residential single family district allows for both attached and detached product size. The residential uses allowed in the RS district are compatible with the institutional use to the east, which is Eastview High School, and the low density residential uses, which are further east of Patriot Way, as well as agricultural uses to the south, with the expectation that those uses may become residential uses in the future. The development is required to provide 2 connections to an existing major street, which the applicant is proposing along University Avenue. Staff has reviewed the separation requirements and finds the proposed connections acceptable. The UDC also requires that a proposed subdivision provide a number of connections to the public street network through either existing or future street stubs to an adjacent property. The applicant has stated that the preliminary lotting plan includes 6 connections and will meet that requirement. Wastewater service is not available to the property at this time. However, the applicant is investigating multiple options for wastewater service, including a potential partnership with the Georgetown Independent School District for the lift station at Force Main serving Eastview High School. The city is currently updating the wastewater plan based on the updated land use map and the potential for several significant developments east of State Highway 130. We do find that the property is suitable to be rezoned for the permitted uses by this district. As is required by the Unified Development Code, notifications were sent to property owners within the 300-foot buffer, as well as an advertisement in the Williamson County Sun. Signs were posted on property, and to date, Staff has received 2 written comments in favor. Commissioners, you do have 1 comment that was attached as part of your posting in favor. We also received one this afternoon about 3 p.m., which I would like to read into the record if possible.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Let me just pull up my screen. So this written notice is from Mr. Clyde Werner, who resides at 4101 University Avenue. He has provided his letter of support, and his additional comment is that this property needs a 12-inch sewer line. In summary, this is a public hearing and possible action on the zoning map amendment to rezone approximately 92.612 acres out of the W. Stubblefield survey from the agricultural zoning district to the residential single-family zoning district for the property generally located at 4250 University Avenue. Per the Unified Development Code, the Planning and Zoning Commission shall hold a public hearing and make a recommendation to the City Council. Mr. Chair, that does conclude my presentation. The applicant is present tonight and available to answer any questions that you or the commission may have.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, questions for staff?
This is Kayla McCord. I do have one question for Mr. Wagoner. Just to clarify my own thinking, it seems that earlier in your presentation, there was an indication on one of the slides that the target ratio for a neighborhood future land use designation was 90% residential. And later on, we were talking about 80%. And I just, since this involves 40% probably of the of this particular designation, I'd like to make sure I understand which is correct.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate you identifying that is an error on my part in terms of reporting the target ratio. It is meant to be 90% residential, not 80%. So my slide was incorrect in the 80-20 share, but the uses still are 100% agriculture in nature within this future land use. And this request would move from 0% residential to 40%, and the target is 90. You are correct. Yes, ma'am. I apologize for that.
Okay, great. And thank you. It wasn't a problem. I just needed to clarify my thinking. Thank you.
So you're saying you still have up to 50% of the available acreage available to meet your target ratio?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is it 50 or 40? Is 90%, not 80%?
It's 90%.
Okay, thank you. And then this is a zoning application. The discussion about the sewer really doesn't kick in on this, at this process. That's a subdivision matter, correct?
Yes, sir. And the applicant is in discussion with our engineering department about possible options for service at this time.
Correct. But from a zoning standpoint, availability of utilities has not been a criteria to evaluate a zoning request necessarily.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions to staff? If not, if the applicant is here, if they would like to say something, now's the time to do so.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mark Baker with SEC Planning.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm here with the applicant, also the applicant's engineer, but Nat did a great job kind of going over the summary. And I know you've got a big agenda tonight, so I don't need to waste any of your time. But if you have any questions, we're here and we'll try to answer to the best of our ability.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate it. Any questions for the applicant from the commission? Not hearing any. Thank you. I'm going to now open the public hearing. If there are members of the public that are here that would like to address this application, now's the time to do so. And Amir, was the moment in time that you have a window to address us if you would like.
Okay, so, hi. I don't understand this whole thing, it's all new to me. But it seems like it's gonna affect my property the most because I'm right adjacent to this new property, to that new development. I don't know when should I approve or disapprove, what's the window for that? I don't have any idea of how this whole procedure works. So if you could just guide me a little bit, how is it gonna affect my property? That would be, I appreciate that.
Okay, typically commission does not engage in dialogue with folks who are taking advantage of the public hearing process. But what I can assure you is that if you will reach out to the staff member who is processing this application, which is Mr. Wagner, after the meeting, I'm sure he can provide you with more information than you have now and give you a better idea about what the process entails. Any other parties that would like to speak to this item? I'm not seeing any on the panelist list. Do you have any, Sophia?
I do not see any other hands raised, nor do I see a chat indicating that somebody would like to speak on this item.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm going to close the public hearing and Commissioner as to this item. What is your recommendation to the City Council?
Jay, I recommend we approve as presented.
So I have a motion from Jay Warren to approve as presented. Do I have a second?
Kayla McCord, I second that motion.
Okay, thank you, Kayla. So we have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation as presented. Any discussion, any comments by commissioners? If not, Myrna, call the roll, please.
Sheree Heinzman,
Yes.
Kayla McCord,
Yes.
Marlene McMichael,
Yes.
Travis Perthius,
Yes.
Jay Warren,
Yes, ma'am.
Jim Sawyer,
Yes.
Ursula Brashear.
Yes, so that motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Takes us to item BC. And this item is file number 2020-9-PUD. Ethan and Sophia. Or Ethan, I'm sorry.
You're good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item is a public hearing and possible action on a request to amend the Wolf Lakes Village PUD. We are going to be referring to this as amendment number 1 as development progresses on this site. And specifically today, they're seeking 2 amendments to their transportation circulation plan, which I'll discuss as we go along. You'll all be familiar with the site. It is right across the street from Wolf Ranch Town Center. Generally, its boundaries stretch from I-35 on the east to Wolf Ranch Parkway on the west, to the River Hills neighborhood in the north, and University Avenue Memorial Drive to the south. If you're visiting Raising Cane's for trying to sneak around Memorial Drive, that corner will be a subject of our conversation today. Generally, this site sits on an area of the city that has recently been developed. You have the Wolf Ranch Town Center to the south, and the shops on University Avenue, which have been there for some time. You have the recent Bluebonnet Plaza development further west down University Avenue. Up along Wolf Ranch Parkway, you have this portion of the Wolf Ranch Hillwood development that they're referring to and calling their Hilltop area now. And then to the north, you have the River Hills neighborhood, which has been there for quite a while this time. Property is given a special area, mixed use a special area future land use designation in our comprehensive plan, partially because this comprehensive plan was written after the PUD was adopted. These special areas, just like this PUD intends, are designed to be those destinations within our city. For example, downtown is designated a special area where emphasis is placed on building design and creating a pedestrian experience. Of course, the property is in the PUD and fronts on several of our gateway overlay districts. Essentially what the existing PUD does is exactly what that special area designation asks it to do. This PUD was approved in December of 2018 and really creates a high density mixed use, what we might call an urban village style development. The development standards in this PUD are written to focus first on providing that mixture of uses and understanding how those uses relate to each other within the site. And like we would expect from a more pedestrian oriented urban style of development rather than suburban. Development standards focus more on form and dictating how buildings and structures and uses relate to each other within the PUD. You can definitely see this within their concept plan as they illustrate the different building typologies used to house the different uses and how they might relate to each other, and how do you accommodate for things like parking, street trees, landscaping, and public spaces. The PUD is divided into these 4 sub-districts which control the use of each area. You have your village use right there at the center, which aims to provide most of the pedestrian experience in that urban area. You have your mixed use, which if you're like me, you can't see the colors, will be in your bottom right-hand corner area. That is meant to provide for a variety of uses, corporate offices, shops, retail, those more auto-oriented uses. In the bottom left-hand corner, and that is your office area, where the intention is to have the primary use be offices, no residential, limited retail, that sort of thing. Then up in the top left-hand corner of the site, you have the residential areas, which is pretty self-explanatory. Different parts of the PUD are also given a street character zone. And what will be important today as we continue to talk about Bella Lago Avenue is this image right here. Bella Lago, which will be a street we'll talk about later, is part of this mixed-use urban character zone. And these images can give you an idea of what the PUD intends this to be. A pedestrian-friendly space, wider sidewalks, street furnishings, plantings, that sort of thing. And the PUD also establishes a street network inside of it and provides cross sections for each of these different types of streets. 2 streets that we're going to be focused on today are Wolf Lakes Drive, that primary drive that enters the development right there next to Raising Cane's. We're at the current stoplight. And Bella Lago Drive, that first cross street you see there in blue. Wolf Lakes Drive is meant to be about the size of what we consider a major collector in other parts of the city, as it's kind of the main spine of traffic within the development. You'll see it's intended to provide for pedestrian traffic on both sides, but also still provide 2 lanes of traffic in and out of the development with a divided travel lane. And that Bella Lago Drive, that first cross street you come to, is meant to really provide for on-street parking, as well as 2 lanes of travel, 2 lanes of travel, 1 in each direction. Understanding those street cross sections and those the intent of those character zones is important because the First Amendment that the applicant is requesting today relates to a feature they call the Wolf Lakes Circle. This is intended to be located at the intersection of Wolf Lakes Drive and Memorial Drive, so right there behind Raising Cane's. In the PUD, this is a feature that is meant to complement the entry signage as you come into the development. The intention here is to create a traffic circle that's large enough to accommodate the traffic it will handle, and landscaping, different architectural features to welcome you into the PUD. The applicant is actually requesting today to have this moved back further into the development to the intersection of Wolf Lakes Drive and Bell Lago. It's just about 600 feet north further into the site. And this request and the request regarding driveway spacing primarily come as they've begun to move away from conceptual development and entitlement and into actual site planning and looking at the needs of specific users they have in mind for the site. That second request that they're making tonight is in regards to driveways internal to the site. The PUD already establishes that internal streets are to be designed and posted to 20 miles an hour. When they start looking at driveway spacing in this area, which is supposed to have smaller blocks, smaller lot configurations, they find it very hard to meet our 200-foot driveway spacing that's measured center of driveway to center of driveway that our development code typically requires when streets are posted less than or equal to 30 miles an hour. The applicant has worked with our engineering staff to come up with an alternative that would work for them and still provide for safe driveway spacing. And so tonight they're requesting that we write in that spacing of at minimum at minimum of 100 feet from center driveway to center driveway be approved at the discretion of our engineering staff. So if this can visually convey their request tonight, what you see in front of you is a snapshot of the front half of the concept plan so that you get an idea of how buildings may be developed around these roadways we're talking about. The solid black circle represents the current location of the proposed Wolf Lake Circle, and the dash circle, one block into the site, represents the location where the applicant is requesting it. The yellow stars you see represent locations of conceptual driveways on the concept plan. So you can get an idea of why that reduced spacing may be needed on this road with the lower speed limit. This request does get reviewed against all of our criteria for a rezoning and for a PUD. And in general, we found that it complied with all of the criteria. On this slide, these changes are not changing the intent or the overall development standards of the PUD. And so we still, of course, comply with our special area future land use designation. These proposed amendments do take into account the health, safety, and welfare of the public. As they've worked with our engineers to discuss these changes to their transportation plan. We do find that this does not affect the intended land uses in each of those sub-districts we discussed. And in fact, can help them work together and coordinate between the districts better. And then, of course, this property has already been approved for this style of development, was deemed appropriate. And again, here with our PUD criteria, we did not find that this posed any drastic or impact to our intended housing densities, retail or commercial opportunities here in the PUD. Does not affect those arrangement of land uses again. This also does not affect the intended pedestrian streetscape inside the PUD. They're able to relocate the traffic circle on these driveways and while still maintaining safe sidewalks for pedestrians and providing the streetscape that the PUD calls for. This also does not affect the cultural or recreation facilities, which you can argue also includes the streetscapes, as that's not a common element here in Georgetown. And again, does not affect the way that the property can be developed or staged in accordance with the PUD. We did mail letters to 94 property owners within our notification buffer, posted our ad in the Williamson County Sun, and 14 signs were posted around the boundary of the property. We received 2 comments in favor. Did receive several phone calls concerned about potential connectivity back into the River Hills neighborhood, and that those concerns were assuaged once we explained the scope of the public notice, what it really meant. this is a public hearing and possible action on a request to amend the Wolf Lakes Village PUD. I, of course, am here for questions as well as the property owner.
Thank you, Ethan. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Ethan, would you go back to the graphic that you had up showing the relocation of the circle? All right. So this PUD and these footprints that have already gone through the process, the driveway shrinking that we're proposing here is to go down to the 150 feet. It's really the driveways coming off of 2 parking lots, correct?
So the Wesley Ryder, engineering director, is here. He may be able to point out driveways that will be specifically of concern.
Okay.
The PUD amendment calls out Wolf Lakes Drive specifically, so the entire length. But in conversations I've been in with the developer and their engineer, the main concern is this stretch of driveways between University Avenue and Bella Longo. Mostly because you have the intersection with Memorial Drive right there in the center of it. And so not only do you have to space your driveways out between each other, but you also have to space them out from that intersection.
Okay. So the variance or the modification is intended to apply to this street only, or is it to the entire PUD?
It would only apply to Wolf Lakes Drive. So only
Okay.
the blue street you see going north-south here.
Okay.
And the language in the PUD is clear that it's at the discretion of our development engineer.
Correct. Okay. Any other questions for Ethan? If not, if the applicant is present and you'd like to address the commission, now is the time to do so. All right. This is a public hearing. I'm going to open
Mr.
the
Chairman, the applicant just took a minute to get her camera on.
I'm sorry.
I got you. Okay. We're not doing anything with, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, we're here and happy to answer questions. It's a pretty minor adjustment to our.
Could you identify yourself for the record, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is Iva Wolf McLaughlin. I'm the president of our company, Wolf Lakes LP, that's the owner of this piece of property. And
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say that this is just intended to improve the safety of the site and to enhance the traffic flow. And it's a pretty simple request, and it really is reflecting the fact that this is what has occurred when you go from a concept that we started in 2017, and then here we are in 2021 to implement it. And it's just a mechanism to provide a more efficient use of the site with this relocation of the traffic circle, again, just 1 block essentially north of where it was designed to be. And we probably wouldn't even have a PUD amendment, except for we actually put some language in the PUD about the traffic circle, because the concept plan itself is just a concept, and we have language in the PUD where we're not specifically bound to the exact design of this concept. So, but we are asking to relocate the traffic circle and provide for better flow in the site now that we're in the process of implementing this project.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Not hearing any, I will now open the public hearings. Anyone here this evening that would like to address this item, now's your time to speak. You'd raise your hand, or I have one attendee whose hand is up. Let's see what I have.
Chair, I have a Brian Ortego that'd like to
All
speak
right,
on this item.
Mr. Ortego, welcome.
Yes, sir. My name is Brian Ortego. I live at 125 Cedar Elm in Georgetown. And I just want to, I'm not against this PUD amendment, but I just want to address the commission, whatever. I know that the city of Georgetown and the Williamson County has made a tremendous commitment up to $130 million, I think, $100 million for the city and $30 million for the county. Because this development is a capstone development in Georgetown at this node of Interstate 35 and Highway 29. But here we are on the First Amendment, and we know in our history that it's a conceptual plan, and we've all seen the YouTube video and the amazing architectural features and parks and amenities. And the big thing was the corporate centers and high-paying jobs. But like in another TERS, over a period of years and a period of different amendments, the project can devolve into where we have the same mixed uses, but the ratios change. And like in this project, if say the retail goes to big box development or a large grocery store or something that changes the character, and there was a note in the staff report about parks and amenities possibly changing because of water quality ponds, you know, the city of Georgetown taxpayers, the tax that's being diverted to pay for the infrastructure that other taxpayers will have to support the city services until such time as the TERS is completed, it could change what was a grand picture into something that is more like Wolf Ranch Town Center with multifamily apartments. So it may create the value planned, but the appeal and the conceptual design, it won't be the same. So I think I would just caution P&Z and the developer. I know that we can't guarantee absorption and demand and the conceptual design, I would think, but the large reason that the city and the county committed $130 million is because of the design. So hopefully over a period of years, this can be developed for the benefit of everyone in the city and the developer to fully realize the beauty of the concept plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ortego. Anyone else here that would like to address this item? Please use the raise your hand feature. I'm not seeing anyone. Anyone signed up, Sophia, with you?
And no, sir, not for this
Okay.
item. That was
All
it.
right, so I'm going to close the public hearing, and commissioners, as to this item, what is your recommendation to the city council?
Hey, Ursula, it's Jay. I recommend approve as presented by staff.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Warren, approve as presented. Do I have a second?
This is Travis. I'll second.
Motion by Warren, Travis by Perthius, second by Perthius. Thank you. Any discussion? Myrna, call the roll, please.
Sherry Heinzman,
Yes.
Kayla McCord,
Yes.
Marlene McMichael,
Yes.
Travis Perthius,
Yes.
Jay Warren,
Yes, ma'am.
Jim Sawyer,
Yes.
Ursula Brashear.
Yes, so the motion carries 7-0. Thank you. That takes us to item BD. And commissioners, this is a presentation discussion on proposed text amendments to the Unified Development Code. I contacted Sophia earlier today, and this is a pretty lengthy item in and of itself. And I thought, given the potential for the length of discussion on item BB, we have the opportunity to move this to the February 2nd agenda if you're willing to do that. Did I say that correct, Sophia?
Yes, sir, you did. Mhm.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you, Commissioner, what your thoughts about moving this, and if you're willing to move it, I need a motion to do so.
Ursula, this is Travis. Do we have any idea what the next meeting agenda looks like?
One zoning category.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion to move item BD to the next scheduled meeting.
Should be 2/2/2021. Okay. Do I have a second?
Yeah, this is Jay. I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion? Myrna, call the roll on that, please.
Sheree Heinzman,
Yes.
Kayla McCord,
Yes.
Marlene McMichael, Marlene,
Yes.
thank you. Travis Berthius,
Yes.
Jay Warren,
Yes, ma'am.
Jim Sawyer,
Yes.
Ursula Brashear.
Yes, so that motion carries 7-0. And thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate your willingness to do that. That takes us to item BB. And this is file number 2020-32-REZ. And this will be Michael Petrosky. But before we start this, Commissioners, I don't know if you're aware, and this is an application to rezone property to MF2. And the last council meeting, we had a series of rezonings that were presented to the council, all of which had been approved and recommended approval by the P&Z, and every one of which was denied by the council. So I thought I would ask Sophia, did you walk away from that with any ideas about, is the council talking to us? I mean, are we, our job is to advise the council and assist them in making decisions. Are we missing something here? Or kind of, I need your feedback, please.
Yes, sir. As a general background, the cases for a rezoning at 130 and 35 Westinghouse near the Fairhaven subdivision, and a rezoning, I believe, just north of Westinghouse along Rabbit Hill Road were denied by the city council. Discussions of the amount of multifamily transitions in uses and the need for commercial were all general comments that were part of those different conversations. I think that is the background that we have that I can share at this moment. I will continue to be listening and sharing the outcome of cases with you moving forward, so that the commission continues to have a awareness of maybe discussions on land use and discussions that happen at the city council level, and to keep you up to date on those. In the moment, I think for those cases that I shared, that is the general discussion points that have been included, is the amount of multifamily, the transitions, and the need for commercial were all discussions that took place on those cases itself. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. I would say, as you continue to evaluate cases, please continue to review the criteria for approvals, ultimately the guidance, the policy guidance that's given on decision-making for these applications. And the staff is here to support you if you have any questions about how a case meets that criteria or additional information that you may need to make your decision. That's what we're here for, is to make sure that you have the tools that you need to make decisions on these cases.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Then Mike Petrosky, would you, this is your case, would you take over, please, sir?
Sir, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. Everyone can see my PowerPoint and hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. 2020-32 REZ, public hearing and possible action on a request for a zoning map amendment to rezone approximately 8.705 acres of land out of the Antonio Flores survey, abstract number 235, from residential single family zoning district to the high density multifamily MF2 zoning district for the property generally located at 903 Riverhaven Drive, 2020-32 REZ. Tonight's rezoning, again, is located at 903 Riverhaven Drive. The subject property is 8.705 acres in size. As you can see, there is a cemetery that kind of cuts into this property. This cemetery is roughly 1 acre in size. So if this were to be split, or see this as split, this eastern portion, there's about 0.66 acres here. And then on the other side, along the west, this section here is around 8.05 acres. We are just to the north of San Gabriel Park. We are just to the west of the River's Edge subdivision. We are across the street from the Chevron station, and across the street, we recently had a special use permit in this area as well. And we are to the south of the Parkview Estates subdivision. As you can see with the future land use of the property, it is split between the community center in the light pink color and the mixed density neighborhood in the light brown. As you can see here, this is the study area that staff looked at. We included the entire circle from the community center, measured that to be around 125 acres in size. And then we have this area here that we highlighted in this green showing the mixed density neighborhood. As we mentioned before, while there may be larger swells of different future land uses, we typically want to contain some of those boundaries with certain limitations, being the roadway, open space, floodways, etc. So this is the area that generally north of 971 to the west of the northeast inner loop that staff found to be appropriate for this particular site. And we measured that to be around 124.5 acres in size. Looking at the land use ratio, so this pink area in the middle is the community center. So looking at the targeted future land use ratio, the target is to have 80% non-residential development and 20% residential development. As you can see, the site has kind of developed in the opposite, with currently 76% of that area being developed, but being developed for residential purposes. Meanwhile, the mixed density neighborhood, sort of the opposite of that, you can see that it is intended ratio is 80% residential and 20% non-residential. It should be noted though that because we are going from residential single family to MF2, we are moving from one residential development to another. So neither of these ratios will change depending on the zoning criteria. Looking at the existing zoning for the site, we are zoned residential single family, as I mentioned earlier. We have residential to the east across East Morrow Streets. We have the public facility, that being the San Gabriel Park, to the south. And then across the street, across 971, moving east to west, we have two family, a small section of residential, and then C1, which is the local commercial, which extends out to the North Austin Avenue. You can also see that we have this, this greenish tint going along 971. That is because this property is also part of the scenic gateway overlay. Looking at the future land use for this site, we have the first one is the mixed density neighborhood, which has a dwelling units an acre intended to be 5.1 to 14 dwelling units an acre. This area is to provide a variety of housing types with traditional neighborhood, duplexes, townhomes, quadruplex. Meanwhile, the community center is generally going to be located around arterial roads and intersection. And this is generally going to be your local retailer, professional office that serves the residents of Georgetown. And this has a intended dwelling units an acre of 14 or more. Looking at the proposed zoning district tonight is the high density multifamily MF2. We have a maximum density of 24 units an acre, a minimum lot size of 2, which we're well over, a maximum building height of 45 feet. Generally in this area, you're going to see attached multifamily, that being apartments and condos. You can see here we have a short list of uses that may be permitted by right on the left here within the MF2 zoning district. There is also a very short list that may be permitted with certain limitations. And then we have a small list here on the right with permitted uses that would be allowed after the approval of a special use permit. So looking at the approval criteria for a rezoning, staff found that 3 of the criteria complies and 2 partially complies. I can go over those with you now. To begin, the application was deemed to be complete, And then number 2, the zoning change is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Staff found that this partially complies. Taking into consideration the subject property's location, its boundaries, its access, the neighboring properties and other criteria, staff determined that the subject property may be more appropriate to be analyzed from the mixed density neighborhood framework. The portion of this property that is within the community center, you can kind of see the center of this node is along the 971, excuse me, and the East Morrill Street intersection. As we mentioned earlier, what was originally intended to be 80% non-residential, we can see that this subject area has developed with almost close to that 80% with the residential development, that being the low to medium density residential. Meanwhile, the mixed density neighborhood property, this envisions a mix of residential uses ranging in different types and density that allow up to 14 dwelling units an acre, and also has these secondary neighborhood supporting commercial uses along these major thoroughfares. In addition, as we mentioned earlier, 971 is identified as the scenic image corridor in the 2030 plan. The priority of these corridors is to create a welcoming gateway that allows for a transition of lower intensity and moving along out into more developed portions of the city. Certain promotions of this includes prioritizing lower intensity uses along scenic corridors and also creating transition and uses in streetscaping. So due to these factors, the community center node appears to be more appropriate along the 971 North Austin Avenue intersection, or maybe even potentially the 971 and Northeast Interloop intersection. Meanwhile, the mixed density neighborhood future land use designation appears to be closer to the character of the surrounding area and the development patterns along this portion of 971. That being said, looking at the mixed density neighborhood, land use policy number 2 of the 2030 comprehensive plan aims to promote development of complete neighborhoods across Georgetown. And new neighborhoods should include a variety of housing options, different price points, access to neighborhood commercial, recreational, and cultural amenities. With this site being so close to the San Gabriel Park and its location along 971, the proposed zoning change appears to be in line with this future land use policy. However, it should be taken into consideration that the MF2 zoning district allows for a maximum density of 24 dwelling units an acre, while the mixed density neighborhood envisions a mix ranging again from 5 to 14. A less intense zoning district, such as the low intensity multifamily, the MF1, which has a maximum dwelling unit an acre of 14, may be more appropriate for the property, again, due to the existing character and the character that is envisioned for this scenic corridor, as well as the mixed density neighborhood. Criteria item number 3, the proposed zoning poses no danger to the public health, safety, and welfare. The subject property is located along a major arterial and major collector level roadway. So it is suitable to accommodate additional density, and the only existing property, adjacent property, is a cemetery. Looking at the last 2 criteria, the first one partially complies. The zoning change is compatible with the present zoning and conforming uses. Staff found that this partially complies. There we go. The requested zoning district would be compatible with the present zoning conforming uses of the surrounding area. The City of Georgetown UDC states that the MF2 development should have direct access to major thoroughfares and shouldn't be routed through any lower density residential areas. So in that regard, the request does comply. However, the subject property, as we mentioned again, being part of the scenic gateway overlay, this aims to provide lower density development to maintain the natural character of the area. Therefore, the MF2 zoning district may be too intense for this particular site. Furthermore, as we mentioned earlier, the MF2 zoning district has a maximum building height of 45 feet, and all of the surrounding property has a maximum building height of 35 feet. So we would be 10 feet taller here. And for the last criteria, staff finds that there is sufficient area to develop the site with any permitted uses in the zoning district in compliance with all the development standards. Looking within 300 feet of the subject property, 25 property owners were contacted. Notice was placed in the Sun newspaper and signs were posted on property. At the time of writing this report and sending this report out, I did not receive any letters in objection. When we came back from the weekend, I did see that we had a few objections, and then we had a large packet dropped off to, this morning. So right now we received around 112, I believe, 112 letters in opposition to this request. And I believe that we did send those out to everyone. Again, so per the UDC section 3.06, the Planning and Zoning Commission shall hold a public hearing and make a recommendation to the City Council. I am here to answer any questions that you may have, and the applicant is with us this evening, so they can answer any questions that you have. And they did prepare a small PowerPoint presentation that they would like to share with you. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Commissioners, questions to staff? Michael, I do have one that, and this is kind of was jostled by watching the council proceedings last week, where part of their concerns were in granting MF2 zoning. An applicant could come in and say that what they're presenting doesn't need a full MF2, but they promise they won't be building that. But once you grant the zoning, the door's open. If they change their mind and go want to do a max build out, there's not anything the city can do to curtail that. So the only way to lock in what an applicant might actually be limited to building, if they're going to propose something under the caps of the MF2 zoning, would be through the PUD process. Did you have any discussions at all with the applicant about submitting a PUD application?
We did not, considering that the zoning was kind of geared towards just one particular use. We did not discuss that with the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Commissioners, if no other questions from staff, I will invite the applicant to make their presentation. Good evening. If you let us know who you are, please, and your address.
Good evening. Thank you. This is David Walsh with Greystar. Can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
Can indeed, yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, commissioners. My name is David Walsh. I'm here with Greystar today to request a favorable recommendation to City Council for the rezoning of 903 Riverhaven Drive. Michael, next slide, please. Greystar is a real estate company. I sit on the development team. Oh, I'd love to turn my video on if possible. I didn't realize. Can I be given permission to do that, please?
Sir, you should have the ability to turn your video on.
I am only seeing audio. Let's see. I'm only seeing audio settings. When I go to settings, I do have the option to preview my video, but I cannot turn it on along the bottom ribbon.
I'm sorry, I can look into that. If you want to continue to move forward, I'll try to see what I can do on the
Okay.
continue to do to help support.
Thank you. I only see the mute button in the bottom left. Thank you. Greystar is a real estate firm. I sit on the development team in Austin, and we are here today to talk about an active adult development for the site. Next slide, please, Michael. Active adult is a step prior to independent living or assisted living or memory care. We do not offer medical services. We do not offer communal dining. Each unit is built with a full-size kitchen. So that's kind of the difference there. So it's really age-restricted apartments that provide an opportunity for age-targeted programming in a maintenance-free environment. And then for the community, there's a number of benefits of this type of development. These are typically still very active yet retired residents who are still active in the community, supporting local businesses. And critically, this is an opportunity for residents of Georgetown who have been residents for decades to continue to live in the community if this is the type of housing which they are seeking next. Additionally, it is an increased tax basis. We're projecting adding about 15 million to the tax roll over the next 20 years. Here you'll see a few examples. We have developed active adult throughout Austin prior to this proposed development. These are a few of our maybe more urban developments, and we're going to show you here on the next slide one that is probably a little bit more comparable. We would invite everybody who is interested to tour. Please do reach out to me, and I'd be happy to coordinate that so that you can see this type of a community. We would love to host you. This is Everly Lakeline, which is probably the most comparable or most similar project to what we are proposing. And what's a little bit different from those other projects is, and similar to what we're proposing, is that this is 4 stories and surface parked. So really nice community. And in that way, it is a bit more representative of what we're proposing here at 903. Next slide, please, Michael. You may wonder, why are we trying to build this in Georgetown? Why this site in particular? I won't preach to the choir. You all know what's so wonderful about Georgetown. We do believe that we've identified that this type of housing is currently available really on the outskirts of town. So for a long-term resident to continue living in close proximity to downtown Georgetown, this would be a good opportunity for them at a very attainable rate. Speaking to that diversity of price points, this would be an opportunity to continue living here. It also, as I mentioned, the proximity to downtown, we think that this site is great for the walkability to downtown, the proximity to the senior center and the recreation center. We think the proximity to those in San Gabriel Park are particularly harmonious. All right, thank you. I just got logged out, but back in. Can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see you as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your help with that. So here is the current conceptual site plan. This does still have a bit of work to be done and is still quite malleable at this point. For example, we understand that 971 is that scenic gateway, and we will need to amend this to create a larger setback. But it is a bit illustrative of, or very illustrative of what we are presenting or proposing for our vision for this site. So you will see that on the west side, in the mixed density neighborhood component of the future land use map is where we're proposing the connected cottages. So that is in line with the variety of housing types desired under the mixed density neighborhood. And then to the east in the community center portion of the future land use map, which considers medium and high density residential with 14 units per acre or more as a secondary use. This is where we're proposing the 4-story residential building with this obtuse C shape surrounding a courtyard pool, clubhouse, and leasing center. You'll also see quite a bit of green space still on this site plan. Planning to have a sizable dog park, as well as a few other green spaces, hopefully to include a playground for when grandchildren come to visit and the like. So, and then you'll also see that we are currently proposing taking main access off of Riverhaven Drive. I think that's, we can answer questions on that, but that's it for that right now, please. And then lastly, I'll wrap up with some notes on common concerns about traffic and parking. As these are common concerns, they have been studied. The National Association of Home Builders helped put some numbers to these questions. And you'll see here that that senior apartments generate about 1/10 the number of trips during rush hour as compared to single family. So the rezone from single family to allow for the senior apartments development would reduce the impact to the road network. And then finally on parking, we're proposing parking this project at 1.2 to 1.3 spaces per unit. The same study found these numbers showing the number of vehicles per household as the head of the household ages. The average age across our portfolio in these active adult communities is 72, so falling just below an average of 1 vehicle per household. We have found time and time again that 1.2 to 1.3 does prove sufficient to take care of all of the cars of the residents, their guests, and the staff of the project. So we're designing with that in mind. So with that, next slide, please, Michael. I'll say thank you for your time. Thank you for having us tonight. We do understand that there is opposition from Parkview Estates, as well as maybe a few other neighbors. We were just made aware of this opposition yesterday evening. So we reached out and mentioned that we really would like to work hand in hand to see if there are any changes that we can make to this vision that would make that would earn their support to find the ideal next use for this abandoned property. So with that, thank you for the time. We're here to answer questions, and I appreciate all the efforts of everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? I would ask one question, and David, this is for you. Would you be willing to pause this application long enough to meet with the neighbors?
Yes, sir. We are open to that idea. We'd love to understand their concerns more thoroughly tonight, but absolutely, we are interested in finding the right solution with the neighbors. And if that includes taking some time to go back and meet with them and figure out the right strategy, we're committed to that.
So where we stand in the process is once we open the public hearing, I'm going to go through hearing from a whole bunch of people. And of those 112 people that sent in comments, exactly 0 of them were in favor of the application. We go through the public hearing process, then I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for a motion to go to the council. So if there were a window of opportunity that you wanted to seize, I need Sophia's guidance on this, but this is the moment in time that you would need to say you want to have an opportunity to go meet with the neighbors.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Hang on, let me ask Sophia right quick. Sophia?
Yes, Chair Sophia Nelson, Planning Director. If you'd like to go through public comment, and you could, prior to making a motion, the applicant could give you a request to postpone action on the item to allow for further discussion with the neighborhood, if that's something that the applicant would like to do. Yes.
So would we do that now or do that after public hearing?
You could do it after public hearing. Given the people, given we do have people that have signed up for public comment right now, I do believe that we need to hear their public comment, given how far we've gotten into this case already.
Okay. Mr. Walsh, do you understand where we're headed? That we'll come back to you at the close of the public hearing and see what your thoughts are about proceeding onward.
I do understand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just mention we have met, but we only had the opportunity to present to 2 of the HOA members, part of their board. So this would be a great opportunity for us to hear from more of the residents. So thank you, and we appreciate the opportunity to hear from them. And then I do understand and would love to be able to reconvene at that point to decide next steps.
All right, thank you. All right. At this point, I'm going to open the public hearing, and given the number of people who have submitted comments, if every one of those folks wanted to talk to us tonight, anything over 20 reduces your window from 3 minutes per speaker to 2 minutes. with you being able to combine your time with another party to get up to 4 minutes to address the commission. So I don't know how many folks are here, but I would like to ask right now for all the participants that are here that would like to speak to the commission, please use the raise my hand function, and let's see how many hands we have going up.
Chair, I have 9 people that have sent me their names to speak on this item. It does appear that you have 6 raising their hands right now.
Okay.
That's 8. One of the 9 was going to cede her time. This was Regina Watson, who was going to give her time to Scott Strantz. If that's still the case, that's what has,
Okay.
That is what she said to me.
All right. So if I've got nine speakers up to speak, and that's the extent of it, then we're good for 3 minutes per speaker with a total time of 6. So let's start with that assumption that we have something in the 9 to 10 speaker range. And Regina's hand was up first, but I think since you said she wants to defer her time to Scott Strantz, I'll just start with Scott. Scott, if you're here this evening, welcome. And you will have 6 minutes.
Yes, thank you for your time and for this meeting and our option to speak directly to the P&Z group. I speak on behalf of myself as well as the residents of Parkview Estates as the HOA board president. And the proposal in front of us at this point will have a significant impact on not only our neighborhood, but the neighborhoods to the east of us as well. There's some city implications as well. Let's just start with the development of a 4-story apartment complex would be detrimental to the city's long-term vision of 971 as designated as a scenic corridor. That was brought up by city staff, and that scenic corridor would be reduced with a forward-facing or rear-facing 45-foot building with a 15-foot setback. There's just no way around the fact that driving down 971, you will come across a building that is 45 feet tall. So that goes somewhat contrary to the scenic corridor component that the city's trying to maintain. Another component is a 4-story building would block the scenic views of San Gabriel Park for the residents of Parkview Estates. We're called Parkview Estates for a reason. When this subdivision was built out in 1993-ish, we had a beautiful view of the park, and that's our namesake. And now here we are 25, 27 years odd later, and we have an opportunity in front of us to see that taken away. The 40-foot structure would be taller than our highest home in the neighborhood overlooking the park. So even at our highest point, their view would be blocked. Another component is a project such as this directly adjacent to the park would have a detrimental effect. Taken directly from the Georgetown Parks and Rec website, and I quote, San Gabriel Park was designated a Lone Star Legacy Park by the Texas Recreation and Park Society in March 2012. Only 9 parks have this designation. These parks were chosen for their historical prominence within their communities and the state by providing natural respite and social interaction as those communities were founded, developed, and prospered. It seems to me that putting in a 172 unit apartment complex, regardless of what its intended use is as far as an age demographic, is that detracts from the very thing that it's trying to protect. The park will be forever changed. Then along with an apartment complex there and the park, there's no question that traffic will be dumped onto the northbound or the north side and the south side of San Gabriel Park. Staff has indicated that the arterial roads will handle that, but there's no doubt that there will be increased traffic through the park, and increased traffic through the park equates to safety concerns and in a roundabout way, usability. Another component about this is there's an encumbered section on the far east side of their project. That 0.66 acres is actually the retention pond for our neighborhood. That is in the city documents, in the deed, it's recorded that would be used for the retention pond in our neighborhood. So if there were development that we're going to use that in any way, that would have to be addressed. But at present, my understanding is, reading through the records, that that's already encumbered. We have a 176 unit, 3-story apartment complex to the north of Parkview Estates right now. And to add another complex of basically the same size directly to the south will change the very fabric of our neighborhood, and that of Katy Crossing and River's Edge, Parkside, this whole entire little corridor right there. This will stand out and just change the overall appearance and probably livability and desirability by having apartments on both the north and the south side of our community. All I really ask is that the commissioners look at what the intent of the original development plan was, and a rezone request is actually trying to change that request, and there's consequences to that. I think that there will be detrimental impacts in several areas, specifically to our neighborhood, by having something of this size placed just directly to the south of us. I look forward to working with Greystar, but I think these are big issues, and I look forward to what the other residents have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let's go to, I have a hand up with Hope United. Maybe not. How about Kai Browning?
Whoops. Hey, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, yeah, this is Mike Blum. I live at 212 Rio Vista. I must have signed in with the wrong Zoom account. I apologize.
That's not, tell me your last name again, please.
Blom, B-L-O-M.
Okay, welcome. Good evening.
Well, sure. Hey, David, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate learning a little more about the project. I think that Scott did a good job of covering a lot of the items inconsistent with the surrounding area uses and those things. I wanted to focus on a couple of things, and I thought he had a really good line when he said we were called Parkview Estates for a reason. And I am concerned about the barrier that would be between us and between 971 as that scenic kind of corridor and park and San Gabriel Park. The park is, in my opinion, a gem of Georgetown. And I think you know that because that's why you like that location. But there's a lot of things that go on in that park. They've done a great job updating some volleyball courts. They put a basketball gym under the bridge, which was genius, by the way. There's a lot of biking. There's a lot of family outings in that park. And I do believe that the park will see added cut through traffic with that. And I think we can all agree that that park is just not the place for a lot of cut through traffic. That's not what we want. And that's not what we want our traffic patterns to be at all. We'll, of course, dump extra traffic on all of the other avenues as well. But my main concern right now is protecting that corridor, as we spoke of, and then the view to San Gabriel Park. I'd really love to see something coming into the city that complemented the view to San Gabriel Park and didn't create a barrier. Hey, thanks a lot. I look forward to meeting you in the future, David, and talking through some of this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments this evening. Kai Browning.
Hello, this is Key Browning. I live at No problem, no problem. I live at 101 Benchmark Street in the Parkview Estates. And I did want to make a few statements. Of course, this type of building would be inconsistent with the surrounding uses. And it most certainly is going to increase traffic, and not just on 971, but also as a cut through the park, as was just mentioned. And it's also a visual barrier for our community. But just in driving down 971 or on Austin Avenue, you get to see that beautiful park right there. It's very uplifting, and having a large 45-foot structure there, and it just definitely distracts from, I think, the whole comprehensive plan for Georgetown. And if you would, I'd like for you to vision with me a charter school, or even an innovative daycare center that could serve hundreds of families, and something where you're bringing people in and out, making Georgetown more of a destination city, which is what we're trying to do. And we have beautiful, the square and the historic district, and of course the wineries and our lush parks make Georgetown a destination city. And so by having something wonderful there that maybe even collaborates with the Williamson County Museum could really bring in the historical aspect of Georgetown to that area. Another possibility might be executive suites for entrepreneurs, massage therapists, chiropractors, and the healing arts. We could have yoga in the park. Or let's try something else, maybe a veterinary clinic or a pet surgery center with professional pet training classes there. I mean, there's so many things that we could also review beyond this high density facility. But I do think it needs to be architecturally elegant, and it needs to be consistent with the picturesque landscape of that park. And it just is going to make such a big difference for us in keeping the view and the energy of Georgetown. I can even see a pedestrian-friendly skywalk, something really innovative and enjoyable that bridges either side of 971, because it's going to turn into a 4 or 5 lane road eventually. And we do need some type of real immediate access into the park from Georgetown High School and from our neighborhood. So I just really want it to be a wow. So when people drive in from Weir or some other areas off to the east or anywhere, then when they come in, they would see the park as a wow, or the structure that's there that's very innovative and engaging. So thank you for all of the work that y'all are doing here at P&Z. We really appreciate you keeping Georgetown beautiful. Thank you so much for your hard work.
Thank you, Ms. Browning. We appreciate your comments this evening. Reagan Fernandez.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Walsh, for your presentation. I did do some research on what you.
Just a second, Ms. Fernandez, I need to get your name and address, please, for the record.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Not a problem.
I represent our entire family, a family of 5. We live at 305 Park Vista Drive. So we are constantly using the exit point of our Parkview Estates neighborhood on 971 and Park Vista Drive. So I already know that there are problems right at that section because of the Katy Crossing leasing development, and they're building Parkside Crossing condominiums behind us, which are attached. And so they're going to be going on to 971. And then the $8.1 million bridge from Rivery Boulevard over through the edge of the park onto 971 will be dumping there within this year. And the city still hasn't approved, or there are no immediate plans to expand 971. And that's my problem, is the accidents, seeing students cross over when there are no sidewalks, trying to cut through our neighborhood to get to the high school. But back to Mr. Walsh, and thank you, Scott, for that presentation. I even learned about our retention pond, which I didn't know about it over there, because we had a creek and retention right behind my home, and that got covered up by Parkside Crossing. But anyway, to Mr. Walsh, I think it's a beautiful concept. I love it. I love it for the seniors. The only problem that I have, and my biggest concern, is the height, because it does block the view, and I use the park every single week. I jog and I walk in the park. There are a lot of us that cross over. They come up from Katy Crossing and they use pathways to the park to access the basketball, the volleyball, frisbee, the disc course, and the paths. And so my concern would be, you've already said that your River Haven can barely fit 2 cars. I don't even use River Haven. I use East Morrow, and that's narrow too. So the entire vehicle, the way that we get through to the park and are trying to compete with all this traffic now coming up from 130 up to 971 to dumping onto North Austin is really bad, and it's already backing up in the afternoon. And so you had said that you were moving the traffic from River Haven, and I don't know where you would be moving to like 971, and that's going to be a problem because as many of us residents know, there are no plans from the city that this is in the near future to widen it. And we're going to be having 89 condominiums built directly behind Park Vista Drive. So I'm all for the 55 plus. I agree with that concept completely. I've loved what you've done. I love the look of it, and I actually think it's elegant. I'm against putting more businesses over there because then that would be parking, and that would be, I don't think that would be conducive to how we see it beautifying the area. I think your concept would beautify it. However, I don't think the density and the height is conducive to this area.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. Next hand up is Jill H.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Jill Holmes, homeowner at 202 Rio Vista Drive in Parkview Estates since 2009. The proposed 4-story high-density apartment complex at 903 River Haven is inconsistent with surrounding uses, will increase traffic, creating a public safety concern, and is a visual barrier to San Gabriel Park, some common themes that you're hearing this evening. While we know growth is inevitable, Parkview Estates residents are very concerned about increased traffic and congestion on 971. That is a 2-lane road, no immediate plans for being widened to SH 130 in the near future. Traffic through San Gabriel Park could increase to bypass congestion on 971 at both Gann Avenue and Park Vista Drive. Traffic has increased significantly along 971 over the past few years as a result of several new developments, many of which you've heard this evening: River's Edge Rental Home Community, Pecan Branch Mobile Home Community at 971 and 130, and Rental Home Community at Inner Loop south of 971. Traffic will only increase with several other developments under construction: the condo community next door adjacent to Parkview Estates, a new neighborhood at 971 in Inner Loop, and land being cleared near Georgetown High School on Austin Avenue. These current developments, coupled with the new I-35 overpass under construction feeding directly into 971, will significantly increase the traffic. These developments have affected safe pedestrian access to Georgetown's treasured San Gabriel Park. The proposed complex will add another barrier to safe pedestrian traffic, and it will affect traffic through Parkview Estates by using our neighborhood as a cut through to avoid the new intersection going in at 971 and Austin Avenue. The intersections of 971 and East Morrow and 971 in River Haven are very dangerous intersections. Traffic from a high-density apartment complex would exacerbate these dangerous intersections, especially with the new I-35 overpass feeding into 971. This is a huge public safety concern for our neighborhood, and I thank you for taking the time to hear our comments.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Todd Hughes, we finally get around to you, sir. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Commissioner, and everybody that does, I've never been on one of these meetings. And you guys do some amazing work. I'm in kind of overload as far as all the information. And Mr. Walsh, I do appreciate the information you presented as well. My concern is I've lived here since 2000, and I'm sorry, my name is Todd Hughes. I live at 103 Rio Vista Cove. And I too am like the 55 plus idea. One day I'll probably be there. But I think for me, I think it's the fact that there's no expansion plan for 971. Because you're talking about, I don't know if you ever have been on River Haven and tried to cross 971 onto Gann. That is a crapshoot. That is a dangerous intersection. And it's kind of blind looking to the right and to the left. So anyway, it's a very dangerous intersection. And Gann Street crossing over to that whole fork in the road with Gann crossing onto River Haven as well. There's no light. And just the way that intersection is formatted is basically, it's kind of at an angle. River Haven's kind of at an angle coming onto 971. And which, you know, I mentioned the blind spot earlier, but people tend to not signal. You don't know who's going which way. So to add, and then when you, and I don't know the distance between Gann and Park Vista Drive, or excuse me, Gann and Park View Drive, where the Chevron station is. I would say that's maybe 300 feet, and I'm guessing. And there's a driveway in the gas station, probably about 30 feet from Parkview Drive, if you will, try to visualize. Parkview Drive, and then about 30 another 30 feet, you've got an access point to the gas station. And then the way your plan was looking in it looked like you had an access point out onto 971. So there would be an additional access point from your complex onto 971. And if I did the 1.25 car-ish with 144 units, that's about 200 plus cars and about a 300 feet area that you're gonna, and most of those cars are gonna go on to 971. Some of them may take through the park, which I doubt. Some of them might cross 971 into Parkview Estates, but either way, you're talking about 200 more cars in an area, a street area of about 300 feet, which is ridiculous. So I think before any kind of plan like this for that particular area, which I like the plan because something needs to be done with it, but I think first we need to look at what happens with 971 and the widening of that. So that's my specific main objection to it. My other thoughts were, I looked at the
Mr. Hughes,
yes,
Mr. Hughes, your 3 minutes is run, so if you can wrap this pretty quick, I would appreciate it.
I will wrap this up. So the proposed or the example sample unit you sent from Lakeway, that took 2.5 years to construct. So we're not just talking about the 200 plus cars, whatever increased development that happens between the next 2.5, 3 years, plus all the construction that happens in that time frame. That's all I got. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, I appreciate it. The only other hand that is up is belongs to Regina Watson, and I think you've given your time up. Do you have something quick?
I do. I have Mr. Bobby Pope here, and he would like to make some comments.
Okay, Mr. Pope, welcome. You have 3 minutes.
All right, my name is Bobby Pope. I live directly across from at 401 FM 971, which will be directly across from this project. And I have lived there 54 years. I am, I guess, a senior citizen. I'm 82 years old. And all of the last 54 years, I could sit on my front porch and look into the park and also see the skyline from Southwestern University and the courthouse and all this. Well, as soon as this project is built, all I'll be able to see is 171 units, and I'll be looking at the back of it. I'll have no view there, just like none of the residents in Parkview also would have the same problem. As far as traffic, I don't think you could probably put this in a worse place for traffic because Riverhaven Drive and 971's even on a very, very slow day is dangerous. The Parque Vista Drive and Morrow Street is definitely for a senior citizen, not a very easy to traverse across. And so that only leaves there for you to go into the park and down College Street, all the way through your neighborhoods, all the way to 29 if you want to get to town. So I think your traffic flow for 200 to 300 cars added to what's already here would be not a good idea. We've always enjoyed the scene from the park, and any car coming down 971 would be not have any way to see the park. My wife's family, actually, the Williams family, are the one that donated the land to the park how many years ago, which is a long time ago. But I think, I believe the city could find a better use for this project. This 8 acres really would probably be better suited to be part of the park, but that's neither here nor there for anybody anyway. So I understand Mr. Walsh and them. Everybody tries to make a profit on anything you do. And I understand his problem, but I just think this is a bad idea for this location. I think it could be put to better use, and I would just recommend leaving it at the zoning it's at right now. I think it'd be better served for that. But that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And then the last hand I had up
Is
I'm sorry.
it belongs to Brad McGrew. I think his screen name had Kitty on it, but he did sign up to speak.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Is this Kitty?
Well, no.
That's the wife.
That's my wife.
Oh, okay. So, all right. Did you mind giving us your name and address, please?
Brad McGrew, 204 Gann Street.
Okay. All right. Welcome.
Yeah, it's me and my wife. We're a team. And, I do appreciate what David and them have done. Just that the density is just way out of line. My wife and I walk almost every day a 3-mile loop through the park, and it's just been amazing. We moved to Georgetown about 3 years ago from Austin and retired up here. And we're like unicorns. We're native Austinites. We went all through school there and everything. But anyway, my big objection is this, the 4 stories and the density. Maybe those smaller units, and I would be glad to meet with David and look at what he's doing, but the density probably needs to be cut to a third of the density they're looking at. And I understand the economics of it. And I've worked with a lot of developers being a CPA. So I understand how the numbers work on this stuff, but I really looks like he's got a first-class operation going there. We like the 55, kind of fits in with us and our situation, but the density is just too much. And then the traffic issue is a really legitimate issue too. And I think the density, and if you could get it knocked down from being 4 stories and get your density down, I think I could get behind this project. But that's where it stands now. I'm not for it.
Well, us and a lot of the neighborhood do go to the park to go walk, and there's no way for us to really get safely across the street, across 971, other than run, because there is no light there where we can cross. So the additional traffic from this means us old people are going to have to run real fast.
I think that's, do you have anything else? Anyway, yeah, plus we were promised, a crossing when they were doing the bridge in the 971. And because people in Texas just don't really understand they're supposed to yield to crosswalks.
All right. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your comments. That's all I have on the hands I see. Sophia, do you have anybody else who signed up?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay. All right. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing and go back to Mr. Walsh and ask, hang on just a second. Ring the bell on myself. How about that? All right. Mr. Walsh, are you still with us?
Yes, sir.
All right. You've heard the comments from the public speakers, and this is a small sampling of the comments that were submitted to the city. Consistently opposed to the project, with many of the same points raised that I think mass is a critical issue. Traffic certainly is an issue. Do you want to respond to what you've heard here this evening?
Mr. Chairman, if it's all right with you, if it's all right with you, we can take it offline. We'd love to meet with the neighbors again, and at that point, just discuss some of these issues and see how we can change the vision to help alleviate some of these concerns.
So you're formally asking the commission to defer any further action on this item tonight?
Yes, sir, please.
And Sophia, when would they need to be bringing this back?
I would ask the applicant when specifically he would want to look at, if he's wanting to come back at in February. Additionally, what we can do is just renotice for the request and postpone until the applicant is ready to come back, and renotice occurs for that meeting, whichever the preference of the commission.
So if there is a motion to postpone, I guess that's what would be looking for, is a motion to postpone to a date certain. Can we pick that second meeting in February as a date certain and on or before that date?
We could say the date certain would be the second meeting in February. We can say that.
Okay, what is that date, please?
That date is February 16th. I wouldn't say on or before that date. I would just say February 16th.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, do I have the floor is open to a motion?
It's Jay. I'll move that we move it to February 6th as suggested.
Motion to postpone to February 16th. Okay.
Sheree, I move to second that motion.
Okay, second by Sheree. Commissioners, any discussion on the motion?
On Ursula, just one thing for the developer. Looking at it in what's going on and being a longtime resident, I think they would have a lot more success if their height was 40 feet or less, and they were not aesthetically displeasing, and figuring out some way to work with the topography and everything else and maintain a 40-foot or less total overall height. That's all. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments by commissioners? Myrna, call the roll, please.
Sheree Heinzman,
Yes.
Kayla McCord,
Yes.
Marlene McMichael,
May I ask, I had lost power, so I had to reboot, so I don't know what the motion is.
Sure. The motion is to postpone the item until the February 16th, 2021 meeting.
I vote aye.
Travis Perthius,
Yes.
Jay Warren,
Yes, ma'am.
Jim Sawyer,
Yes.
Ursula Brashear.
Yes, so that motion passes 7-0. Thank you, everyone, for your participation in this item tonight, and appreciate the comments and everybody's very cordial behavior throughout what could have been a contentious discussion. That takes us to item BE. Sophia?
Sorry about that. Thank you for the opportunity to share some updates. If we have any of the audience still in attendance for that last item, I would just say if you have any questions and need staff support, please reach out to Michael Petrowski. He is the case manager on that case. He'll add his contact information into the chat right now so that you have it, but he is the case manager and can support with any additional questions or needs that the community may have on this request. A couple other announcements as I indicated earlier, in future meetings, I will be bringing updates on council items and how they acted to share that with the commission. We won't be able to discuss because they've already been items that you've had taken action on, but I could bring them for awareness. And should you be interested in watching those meetings, you can go back and look at those links. An additional announcement, two really good news. You may have already seen in your electric bill insert, but Ethan Harwell was identified as an Employee of the Year citywide. So if you see Ethan, give him a good pat on the back. He deserves it. And many of you may not know Brandy Heinrich. Brandy is one of the first faces that you see when you walk into our office, if you ever need to come into the office. Brandy was our Employee of the Year for the department. And if you ever have interacted with Brandy, she just gives you a good positive feeling of wanting to help and is a wonderful front face for us and first voice when somebody calls the office. So just wanted to share that with you guys as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, quick announcements from other boards and commission meetings. As far as GTAB is concerned, we finally knocked out the recommendation that's going to City Council for a proposed transportation impact fee. That impact fee, and the council still has to act on it, but the fee is designed to collect transportation dollars for projects being added into the city, and it will raise a substantially greater amount of money than the city collects right now to help address transportation issues. And that dovetails with the discussion about the Mobility Bond Committee. Both Cherie and I served on that committee, and a recommendation from that committee went to the council. And both these committees were wrestling with future transportation demands that are hovering north of $500 million, $500 million of transportation improvements needed in the city. And the question is, where does that money come from? Who pays it? When do they pay it? And both those projects are a step in the right direction of getting money coming from the development that the bonds would come from the taxpayers, but the impact fee would come from the development community. So those two things would, we talk about 971 being.
You got to not cross the street.
Pardon me, would you mute your microphone there, Kitty? Thank you. Roadways like 971, Interloop, the State Highway 29, it's just every road you're looking at has got capacity constraints, and the city is working aggressively to try to generate funds to help start producing additional capacity. And part of that bond package is going to include transportation upgrades for signalization, for lights, sidewalks, bicycles, hike and bike paths. I mean, so it's the goal is to make that a full plate of options for the city to be working from. So you pay attention, those things are coming down the pipeline. And Sharif, if you had any other comments about that, you're free to jump in here.
No, I think you covered it very well, Ursula. Thank you very much. Obviously, we had a very ambitious task. As Ursula had articulated earlier, we were tasked with over 500 million projects in dollars, and we were given a $50 million budget. So we had to come back, and we presented back to the city what we felt were the top 10 initiatives that would have the most impact to the city, and also taken in consideration crosswalks, sidewalks, pathways, etc. So a lot yet to come forth, but it was definitely an ambitious agenda, to say the least.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from alternate members about the actions that we took this evening? All right, not hearing any. Just a reminder that our next meeting is February 2nd, 2021, via teleconference. That meeting will start at 6 p.m. I would take a motion to adjourn.
This Sheree, I'd like to go ahead and put forth a motion to adjourn.
Okay, second.
Kayla
Berner, call the roll.
Sheree Heinzman,
Yes.
Kayla McCord,
Yes.
Marlene McMichael,
Yes.
Travis Berthius,
Yes.
Jay Warren,
Yes, ma'am.
and Tim Sawyer.
You already adjourned.
And Ursula Brashear.
Yes, so that motion carries 6-0 with Mr. Salyer not voting. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it. Appreciate your participation this evening.
Thank you, Ursula. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And congratulations to Brandy and to
Ethan.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
You guys actually deserve. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.